All right, Will, I'm especially excited to talk with you. I've been following you for many years and just have a complete admiration for the different projects, companies you've built and sold. A few of which that stand out to me was building companies, selling it to Samsung, contributing a lot to Samsung Pay, LoopPay, Roam Data. You've been in the payments game for a long, long time. Through those experiences, you've now transitioned, I would say, or maybe you've kind of opened up your scope of what you're working on to include electric vehicles, starting an electric vehicle company. Is your time now split between EV production through Indigo Technologies, as well as, are you 50-50 on Indigo and OV Loop, or how do you spend your days nowadays?
Yeah, I'm roughly 50-50, meaning 50 hours in OV Loop and 50 hours in Indigo, and sometimes it varies depending on what's going on. But yeah, it's definitely a passion, both on the fintech side. After leaving MIT and finishing up my first startup, I got involved in fintech quite naively, and then it's been multiple fintechs since. Interestingly enough, it's Elon Musk started at PayPal as well in fintech, and then moved on to the EV space. But I have been interested in EVs for a very long time as well, and ever since. In fact, specifically EVs and active suspension, which one of my professors, Dr. Amar Bose, back in the late 90s had built an active suspension system, and I was taking his class, and he showed me a Bose active suspension solution that never really took off to mass market because it was too expensive and too heavy. But when I got involved in getting to know another professor, Professor Ian Hunter, that had built a robotic wheel technology, that really caught my attention. I had invested in multiple EV companies, and I was early adopters to EV in the first place. So ended up investing in Indigo, and was asked a couple years ago while I was sitting on the board to look at commercializing, the Indigo Technologies into building the solution, putting it into the marketplace. So both fintech and EV tech now is very much part of my daily passion, and so it's exciting.
Yeah. And as far as I understand it, the innovation that you're really pushing on the EV side with Indigo Technologies is the wheel. So as I understand it, there's a robotic wheel construction, and then the vehicles that you're making or plan to be making are going to be super small, lightweight, and because they're smaller, they're in a different class of vehicles that can more easily be ride shared. Am I describing that correctly, or how do you sort of see the somewhat entry into the market?
And so from the EV tech side, one of the biggest challenges in America is that when you look at vehicles these days, in fact, there was a Bloomberg article a couple of weeks ago talking about the obesity epidemic, not in people but in vehicles. And if you look at all the vehicles that have come about the last few decades, they've gotten bigger and bigger, and the waistline was the reference there. But essentially, they have gotten heavier, they've gotten bigger, and the OEMs have been pushing us towards more SUVs, more trucks, regardless of whether we really need the SUVs and trucks, and because they really make more money in that direction. And the compact cars, low end, they make less money, so many of them are actually being faded out. So unfortunately, when vehicle manufacturers are starting with a heavy vehicle and utilizing what's called the vehicle architecture, in other words, the chassis, when you start heavy, that means you need a bigger battery to transport that heavy weight. And that vehicle architecture really, and it hasn't changed in a long time. And when you have a bigger battery, that itself is the most expensive part, and it's also one of the heaviest parts. So you're adding more weight. That means it is harder and takes longer to charge in level 2 charging infrastructure. That means you have range anxiety. That means you want an even bigger battery. So everybody's competing for range and battery size, when the reality is you should be going the other direction. And why should somebody be the vast majority of commuters are one person driving in a car. And when you talk about Uber and Lyft, 90% of Uber rides are 2 passengers or less, and 75% is 1 passenger or less. So why are we needing a big old car to transport a couple people? And for package delivery or food delivery, that's even worse. There's no reason why somebody should be coming to my door delivering my Chipotles in a 4,000-pound SUV. It just makes no sense. And if you're going to take all that energy from the petrol stations to our home grid, that effectively makes our car a home appliance, right? And every one of our appliances, from TVs to washers and dryers, they all have Energy Star ratings, and we're trying to all make them more efficient to take energy off the grid. So why wouldn't a car? Shouldn't they be made energy efficient at the same time? So what we see
I
is...
feel like the... Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask you, why would this not be... What you're saying sounds so logical. I would think that this would be a focus for like Volkswagen, who makes the Bug, which is the smallest car I can think of. They come out with the Volkswagen Bug Mini. Is that on the radar for any large OEMs, or do you think they're just not thinking about that?
So not many of them are thinking about lightweighting vehicles today. They're all chasing Tesla, and Rivian's R1T is 7,200 pounds. And so nobody's really thinking about building a 2,000, 2,500 pound car. And what we are doing is we said we have to go for lightweight, more efficient vehicles. But the challenge and paradox with the lightweight, more efficient vehicles is that the current vehicle architecture with axles in between the wheels and the usable cabin space is above the axle. So that means it's much higher. And the passive suspension systems that are used for roughly 100 plus years, the passive suspension physics basically says that it's very hard to tune when you have a lightweight vehicle with a varying payload, particularly. So they feel like bouncy golf carts, and none of us want to give up our comfort and our ride quality as much as we love the environment. And just like we don't give up our AC or our heat in the winter, AC in the summer.
Right.
So this is where the Indigo Technologies and robotic wheels actually come in to provide the ability to create a much smaller, lighter weight vehicle that's smoother and roomier than its counterparts in conventional vehicle architecture. So that means we can put in each corner a robot that can spin the wheels so that it can provide propulsion, but also be able to have vertical actuation to cancel out the road noise and road bumps and potholes, to provide a magic carpet ride experience, to give you better ride quality. But guess what? It frees up all that space between the wheels too, to give you more usable cabin space, to allow you to position the driver in a better environment, the passengers too, so that you can have a smaller outside footprint but a larger inside roominess with a smooth magic carpet ride. So when you can make a vehicle much lighter, let's say 2,000 pounds versus 4, 5, 6,000 pounds, now you can have a battery that is much smaller, a 40 kilowatt hour battery rather than an 80, 100, or even 135 kilowatt hour for a big truck, right? Like a Lightning or a R1T. So that saves money. That's more efficient. That makes it faster to charge. And it makes it more cost effective, not only on the upfront cost, but also on a per mile cost. So I always go back to first principles of what are the physics and what are the breakthroughs that allow us to rethink the vehicle architecture for the kind of efficient transportation pods that are smoother, roomier, and lower cost for our gig economy workforce, for our commuters, and eventually for even the robots that are going to be transporting, people and packages.
I love it. This is a daunting company to start, right? I think the statistics around at least U.S. automakers are that there's only, this is a quote Elon mentioned, is that there's only 2 U.S. automakers who haven't gone bankrupt. And I think it's Ford and Tesla. And so many things I want to ask you, but on the technology itself, while we're there, do you view the robotics arm that controls the suspension as being better than the spring and dampener, which is the typical way I think that it's done? So, right, it's a smoother ride.
Smoother ride and a roomier ride for the same package. So that means we free up the space in between the wheels that normally where the motor sits and the drive shaft sits, and by freeing up more space on the inside, it allows us to re-architect the vehicle. And you're right, there really hasn't been a lot of true breakthroughs in vehicle architecture. And this transition to electric, and hats off to Elon Musk for what he's done. And I was one of the first buyers in New England area to buy a Tesla Model S. And I've owned 4 Teslas so far. I was one of the first ones to own a hybrid Chevy Volt before the Tesla. So I've owned about 8 different EVs. And
did you try to buy one of the Roadsters?
No,
early
that's
days?
a little extravagant, to be honest. But I love the Roadster. Don't get me wrong. But I'm trying to figure out how we can provide solutions that's not for the 0.1%, but really for everyday people. And in fact, how do we make it and get it accessible by those who can hardly afford used cars today? And that's actually one of the missions for what I'm doing at OV Loop, which is building a super app that allows people to be empowered by who they are and what they can do and what they can contribute, rather than, we don't know you, we don't know your credit, we're not going to lend you money to go buy a good vehicle for you to go and do your jobs. Why don't we measure you based on, who you are, let you control your own data, and if you're willing to share that data about your driving score, your credit score, and your work score from Uber and others, that you're able to qualify for more affordable transportation that is good for the environment and good for your pocketbooks. So that's what we're aiming to do, is to really transition from what we call the Web 2.0 attention economy that we're facing today as a society in the United States to a Web 3.0 relationship economy, where consumers get to own and control and use their data and even monetize their own data in their own private self-custody super wallet that actually works everywhere, and let them store just about any kind of credentials and data and help empower them. So on one hand, we're building that super app platform for consumers. And then on the other hand, we know that the point of sale has to be improved upon in terms of digital engagement tools, so that businesses and brands have new options to better engage, support, and reward their customers in this fast-growing digital age that we're in.
I want to stick on Indiegogo Technology for a minute.
Sure.
Where are you guys? I saw on LinkedIn, it mentions that the company was founded in 2010. You've been there for a couple years. It looks like there's about, 30, 50 employees. Is the company externally funded with VCs? Give me a sense for the
So the history of the company, it was founded by Professor Ian Hunter. Over 10 years ago, I joined the board about almost 5 years ago, and I was one of the investors in their Series B, and the company had, at that time, roughly about $80 million already capitalized, and so the company overall now has raised more than $95 million. And we're about to raise our next round of capital. And we have about 30 some odd employees at the moment. We're based in Boston, Massachusetts. We're right outside in Woburn, Massachusetts. And I took over the company in beginning of 2020. And it was because our previous strategy wasn't working for being an Intel Inside type of a solution provider. We're great R&D folks, lots of really smart MIT engineers that have been building the solution. And what I recognized was that the analogy is we created the 8086 chip, but the PC hadn't been built yet. And no one really thought that there was a need for PC, and maybe IBM thought that there was 100 PCs that are needed in the world. And we were knocking on IBM's doors before the PCs were built and before the software on top of the PCs, like the Excel spreadsheets, were being targeted for accountants that can make their lives easier. So we were too early to try to be the Intel Inside, and we were going to die on the vine if we continue down that path, begging the OEMs to build PCs when they were building mainframes. So much like any entrepreneur that believes in the vision, I put my money where my mouth was, and I recapitalized the company, and I hired people that really knew what they were doing from the auto manufacturing space, from the EV space, and to combine with the team that we had in terms of R&D, and to rethink and reimagine how we can build a vehicle and focus on the target market segments of rideshare, delivery, fleets that need much more efficient vehicles for a greener environment in our urban environments. So we did our homework. We raised additional capital. We brought on board, the former president of Zipcar, managing director at FM Capital, former CEO of Daimler Chrysler Canada, Mark Norman. We brought on board Volker Casey, who was the former head of innovation at Audi. He joined us as our CTO. We brought on board the former designers from Lucid and Porsche to help us design the vehicle, and so on. We just continued to build the organization while we built the business model, and we went and validated with the folks like Uber and Amazon and executives there, and says, is this what you need? And we went to the rideshare guy, who's now part of our board of advisors, and opened up to all of the gig economy workforce and said, is this what you need? Would this save you money? Would this help you do your jobs better, make your days easier, faster, and put more money in your pocket? And when the answers all came back, we continue to now build a business plan, and we're on our way to raise our next round of funding. And we want to do it systematically and efficiently so that we can actually deliver a vehicle in the next couple of years. So a lot more work ahead of us, Mike, but we're on an exciting journey.
Yeah. And when you were pitched by this, I presume Ian is somebody who you had been friends with or knew for a while. And he says, "Hey, Will, I got this technology. We have this capability to build smaller, more efficient, smoother riding cars." What was your process internally? Presumably you could spend your time doing a thousand different things. You're a smart guy. You've had exits in the past. How do you go about running the calculus to decide whether or not you want to dedicate your life to this? Because I imagine you're signing up for, a minimum of a 7-year journey, 10-year journey. Like building a car company you can't just build it and flip it in a couple of years. The amount of, I would imagine you're thinking about, gigafactory level infrastructure at some level, right? You can start small in a smaller warehouse to get out early versions, but there's no shortcuts around building electric automobiles. How do you make that decision? I guess, are you comparing, are you looking at the market carefully and thinking more quantitatively about the chances of the business working? Or do you just say, fuck it, I've been interested in EVs, this is my chance, let's dive in and do it?
So I'll address the second part of your question in terms of there's a decision-making point, and I'll come back to that, but I want to give you some background on when Ian first approached me. I'm very analytical and first principle thinking, because being an engineer myself, having gone through MIT and undergrad, I was engineering as well. But and I spent 5.5 years as a nuclear submarine officer, as you may know. And when we're out there, we had to learn every single part of that billion-dollar submarine in order for us to qualify and get our dolphins. So that means I have to run and understand and run the nuclear reactor plant back aft, understand how we generate steam and turbine and generate electricity, to generating our own oxygen, scrubbing our own carbon dioxide when we're 75 days out at sea. And so I look at things very systemically and holistically and very scientifically. And when Ian pitched me and showed me what he was doing, I understood that there is a fantastic opportunity and a breakthrough that changes the paradigm of how small and lightweight vehicles can be constructed. And of course, I didn't know everything at the time, and I've learned more over time. And being 3 years, or really 2.5 years at that time, being involved with Ian, I could see the progression of where the company was and the challenges that were in front of us. And mind you, I was already the CEO of Loop at the time. Roughly 2 years in, and after I've served my 3-year commitment to Samsung, I was full-fledged CEO of Loop and continue to be. So at that time, when Ian came to me December of 2019, the decision-making process was more one of necessity and a real challenge, which he came to me 2 weeks before Christmas and basically said, "Hey, Will, remember those investors that were supposed to come in? Well, the money's not showing up. And I think the existing investors no longer believe in the model, and our Intel Inside strategy is not working, and we're going to have to fold up shop if we don't do something, and if there's nobody to come in and save the company." So the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. And I had to make a decision. Am I going to step up? And do I really believe in what the technology can do? And it was hard at the time, to be very frank, because I already had a full-time job, and I know how hard it is to run a startup company. So I had to do some soul searching, but at the same time, I know that there was not much time. and that the world would be deprived of this innovation if I didn't step up. So a couple of weeks later, I put a proposal there for the board. We ended up voting for it, and it was one of those times that you either step up or you watch the company fold, and you lose this really spark of what could be an innovation, remain an invention that doesn't become what it can be. So that was hopefully a long but accurate way of answering your question.
Yeah. And how much did you invest at that time?
I wrote a few $1 million check at the time, and I continue to write checks to make sure that the company can hit its milestones. And so I definitely not only have skin in the game, but I have flesh in the game and my heart in the game. So
wow.
That's even more important.
Yeah. And then to layer on you also running another company, do you view your position in either company as temporary, where you're actively looking for someone to step in, or do you feel stable running both companies simultaneously?
I don't think you can do that effectively right now. And I think those should be more organic, in that if we find people naturally that is going to be able to do a better job for the company at that stage of the company, we should invite that individual to take the role. But for right now, if I keep thinking that I can't do the job, and I'm not the best person for the job, then I shouldn't be in the job. So right now I'm running both OVLoop and Indigo, both passionately, and I have a vision for both companies, and also there's overlap and synergies in certain areas between the two companies. But they are independent companies with independent. There's some overlap in shareholders, for sure, but they have two different missions that can independently become multi-billion-dollar organizations and create a lot of value for society on their own. And I think together there are overlaps that help each other and help bring more value to society as well. So yeah, I'm passionate about both, and until I find the right folks that can do a better job, and I happily and constantly looking for talent, by the way, and I'm not going to abdicate the leadership and the vision position until I feel like it's in good steward, and that I can turn over the helm to the next person that can do a better job.
It sounds like the right way to think about it. On Indigo Technologies, I see a lot on the website, with the CAD models and the displays and the convincing argument that this business model is the right one. Is there a facility now where there's being prototypes created, or has there been full working prototypes, or where's the actual stage of the hardware at this point? And where do you see it going in, say, the next 6 months, 12 months, short term?
Yeah, so we have developed the propulsion suspension system, what we call the robotic powertrain. And so the robotic wheels is on the robotic powertrain, and we're in fact having it in our labs right here. And we have a Volkswagen Beetle, 1971 Volkswagen Beetle, that's sitting on top of that robotic powertrain. And so that's terrific to validate and prove out our technology. But for the Flow and then the Flow Plus, we have a roadmap for that. Our designers are currently working on the seating buck and the model itself. We're working then towards later on this year our show cars that we're going to be demonstrating by late this year, and then next year followed by 5 working prototypes that will we'll be using for feedback and for demonstration. And then followed by, towards the end of next year, 100 of those vehicles that we're going to use, many of them for crash testing and homologation. And then the SOP starts from there. Of course, we're raising capital at the same time, so we have a next round of capital that we're in discussions with various financial as well as strategic investors that are very excited about what we're doing. And then, of course, we're always looking at, what are the next way of raising even more capital so that we can get ourselves to tooling and SOP, which is start of production. So most likely it's going to be.
Do you see the actual manufacturing?
Say that again?
2024. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do you see the manufacturing being done in Boston, close to where the engineering headquarters is? Or do you see it being done more in a more rural area for economic reasons in America or overseas?
Yeah, our goal is the first manufacturing is going to be done in America. We have partners that we're currently talking to in Detroit, and really the manufacturers that already have plants, people, and processes. So we're in discussions with folks that are good at what they do, which is putting together vehicles. And we do what we're good at, which is the propulsion suspension system and the design and the product market fit. Because when you introduce something brand new like this, you don't have to be the vehicle manufacturer to be able to deliver something as long as you hit the right product market fit. And I'll give you the example. I work for Samsung, which is a fantastic, electronics manufacturer. And when you look at all the cell phones before, the Nokias, the Motorola's, the Siemens, right? And all of these companies, they were manufacturing phones themselves. And anybody who wants to get into the phone business would have to put up the capital, put up the factories, and do all of that. And Samsung was one of them. But what happened in 2006 and 2007, as we led up to the introduction of the iPhone, was that Apple made a conscious decision that they're not going to manufacture, and that somebody like a Foxconn can actually do it for them. And their job is product market fit. And if they can do that right and create the right product with the right demand, there are plenty of factories and people and processes that can fill that demand. But if you don't have it, and you have small volume, you don't have the right product market fit, then it's very expensive to build a vehicle. And competing head to head, with everybody in these market segments, competing against the Teslas and all of them, that's not where we're competing, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're actually trying to open up a whole new class of vehicles. And if we can create the right product with the right product market fit, there are plenty of people that can help us produce that at volume with quality. And there are lots of factories that are opening up that doesn't have enough demand.
Yeah. And I would also assume that it's going to be a slightly easier manufacturing process because your material is going to be smaller and lighter. Whereas, when I look at the Tesla manufacturing facility, they're large cars. There's large machines that move those cars, and presumably those machines are more expensive and maybe more difficult to operate. Do you see a similar kind of production line? I think Tesla emphasizes, or maybe just Elon in his interviews, that the orders of magnitude, it's orders of magnitude more difficult to produce in a production line than it is to make a prototype, and that the most challenging aspects of Tesla were and are the battery construction itself, and then they're working on self-driving, but you don't need self-driving to have early versions of an EV. Do you see the batteries as being a major source of investment in the short term, long term? I mean, are there now battery companies that you can just contract with and put in there as third parties?
So number one, he's absolutely right that prototypes are a lot easier to build than full-scale manufacturing. And at the same time, there are a lot of expertise in manufacturing by people that have done it and have done it well. And you would have to go through production hell, which he had. And, Rivian's going through their own production hell right now by, deciding to invest in their own factories, build up their own teams, build up their own expertise, and going through all of that process. And whether we bring it to, when we bring it to partners that have that kind of experience in building vehicles, certainly we hope to reduce some of that risk. But at the same time, we know that there is a process in building it. But by us going to people that are very good at what they do and maintaining an asset light model, the key is the level of expertise and knowing what we're good at and what other people are good at and letting them do what they are best at. Now, when it comes to the battery itself, Tesla was definitely innovative in putting out the 18650 cells in such a way that they created the packs and they formed the relationship to get the supply chain, and they continue to innovate to go to 2170s and now towards 4680s, and they're also using LFP cells by other manufacturing partners and suppliers like CATL and potentially BYD. While they're doing all of that, the entire industry is moving in that direction. And we're going to ride on the coattails of those innovations that have come before us. So we will be working with the cell suppliers the same way as other EV manufacturers. And we certainly are looking for the continuous innovations that are happening on battery production. So that, I think, it's a playing field that continues to shake out, but that's not where our innovation is. Our innovation is really in the vehicle architecture and the propulsion suspension system, which is this new architecture and new powertrain. And I think that's where we differentiate. And if we can create vehicles that are desirable and affordable and leverage the latest in battery technologies, and whoever has the right type of demand will end up getting the kind of supply because all the suppliers are also saying, where's the demand going? Are we going to go to yet another Tesla competitor and hoping that they would win and maybe they won't make the volume? Or are we going to bet on this class or that class? So we're going to have to win on our own merits on creating that demand. But once we do, we're certainly going to be utilizing all that the supply chain in the battery supply side that has to offer. And make no mistake, building a vehicle is still hard as we innovate. But we do know that there are lots of experts that can help us get there. Our goal is to design it for the right people and really focus on their experience and create the right platform that's affordable for them.
Yeah. I know that Elon has said that one thing that factored into their decision to keep manufacturing not only in the U.S., but right down the street from the engineering headquarters is that there's this, what you're referring to in manufacturing hell, as I understand it, is often just a series of really small engineering changes or design changes, like a valve might be slightly too large and difficult to produce and causes issues. And oftentimes the engineers who design the valve or whatever piece it is will go to the manufacturing floor, see the issue, and then tweak the design. So the ability to get that feedback it provides value. It speeds up the process of design engineering, and it's more expensive to have the plant right down the street. But then it's more expensive than having it overseas, but then you also gain on lowering costs of like traveling, sending the engineers out, the longer feedback loop of design. So I found that kind of an interest. To me, it wasn't intuitive that it really helps to have the engineers on the manufacturing floor. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of engineers that have to be at work, and it's really the collaboration and the bridge. You don't want all your engineers on the floor. You want your engineers to be focused, but the guys who can translate what the issues are that needs to get fixed, that's happening on the floor, that allows you to go back and say, hey, we need to make this change in order for us to get it back out there and fix this problem. That fast feedback loop, I think, applies for all engineering practices. And the closer you are to that information, the faster you can make decisions.
Yeah. I love it. I love it, man. I want to shift gears a little bit to learn more about OV Loop, because I know you're very passionate about that project or that company as well. Can you give, I have a description here, but I'd love to hear it from you on I would love to hear both the vision long-term, and then is that different from where it started? Was the initial impetus for the business different than where it is now?
The direction, I think, is still pointed in the right way. The permutation of how we're getting there, you have kind of a North Star of where you want to go to, but the road is not always straight and easy. So as we navigate, I've been watching. In fact, my first startup going into the fintech space back in 2002, after I sold my first startup out of MIT, which was a security software company called EntitleNet, deep in access management and web-based security. What I recognized was that a friend of mine had a technology that allowed us to bypass the walled garden of the cell phones at that time, which was through the SIM card. So we were able to spoof the SIM card command set with what's called a virtual SIM, and allowed us to put an application, on a SIM card based phone. And I thought I was going to build a mobile wallet for people to be able to. A SIM card is just a smart card, right? So we thought we were going to build a mobile wallet with a smart card reader, so that you could make a remote transaction like an airline ticket, using a card present, transaction via the phone through an app as a mobile wallet. Well, that was very naive, because I didn't fully understand and appreciate the payment space is really a two-sided platform, which is you have a chicken and the egg problem, in that unless you have a lot of consumers already using something, merchants aren't going to care about adopting your new solution. And unless you have a lot of merchants accepting this payment solution, consumers are not going to care about wanting to adopt that solution. So you're stuck in the middle. So very quickly, I learned that lesson within about 4 or 5 months, and we said we got to pivot or else we're going to die. So we pivoted from a mobile wallet at that time on a SIM-based cell phone to a mobile point of sale. We just took a Siemens phone, we changed the back out, added a mag stripe reader, a smart card reader, an infrared to a printer, a smart pin pad, and this is square before square, basically. And we made a mobile point of sale. And then we figured out how to distribute it into the acquirers at the time, and focused on that group of mobile merchants that needed that kind of solution, which compared to the other mobile point of sale, which was a big old brick, if you remember the Nuret 8000, it was cheaper, it was smaller, it was cooler. And so that company eventually got acquired by Verifone, and smartphones came along, and we said, hey, we don't need a separate device, so why not do a little, a plug into a reader, right? So we ended up making these devices and the software behind it, and we white labeled it for everybody from Intuit to PayPal to Pay Anywhere. We became the largest white label solution.
And that was a new company. That was
was later called Rome Data. So BEA Systems was sold to Verifone, then Rome Data Eventually was sold to Ingenico. And basically at that time, 2012, 10 years after I started in the fintech space, there was still no mobile wallet. There's still no Apple Pay and all of those. And that was because NFC, even though it was promised for a decade before, I finally recognized how hard it was to change the merchant point of sale, right? Even with EMV mandate, it was just hard. So my co-founder and I, George Wallner, who was the founder of Hypercom, he says, well, what if we can spoof the mag stripe to receive a magnetic signal contactlessly without having to swipe? And I said, if you can make that work, let's build our own mobile wallet and then figure out how we're going to embed it into phones. And then he, sure enough, actually made it work. And I immediately stopped what I was doing. I remember very clearly I was getting a phone call while I was on skiing vacation with my family up in New Hampshire. And he says, hey, I got the first transmission through, Will. I said, awesome. I'm going to drop what I'm doing. I started writing patents, business plans with them. And we ended up building our own mobile wallet because we knew that nobody was going to believe us or adopt what we're doing unless we show it to them. And we built LoopPay. LoopPay became the #1 rated consumer reports wallet because we were accepted at many more places than everything else that was out there. And that included Apple Pay and Google Pay and SoftCard, which was three major carriers, building their own wallet.
LoopPay was it a mobile app? So I would download LoopPay like
Yep.
Venmo, and I would send money back and forth. And that was around 2014, 15?
That was around 2013, 2014. So in 2014, we got rated the #1 mobile wallet, even though Apple Pay, Google Pay, and SoftCard was all the three major wallets. So, of course, Samsung saw what we were doing. We were in the process of licensing the technology to Samsung and LG and others. And Samsung saw Apple doing Apple Pay, so they decided to offer to acquire us and have us help them launch Samsung Pay. So that was a fun journey. So we launched Samsung Pay. I was the global co-GM, and we embedded our MST technology into every Galaxy smartphone from S6 forward, and then of course some of the Galaxy watches as well. But unfortunately, if you think about what Apple, Samsung, and Google are all doing, and they were doing wallets that are tied really to an operating system or to a phone. And I always felt that if you really want a wallet, you should be looking at what WeChat Pay is doing in China or Alipay is doing, where it's ubiquitous and universal. In other words, it should work for any phone. It should work at any point of sale. And furthermore, the last few years, as you can see, the trend towards Web3 and self-custody wallets and blockchain era cryptography that allows consumers to own their own data. Why can't you have a wallet that you own your own data into? And you get your own lock and key rather than the private company that locks all of our data into one database with one single encryption key. So that if anybody gets a hold of that key, they have the keys to the kingdom, whether it is a rogue employee or whether it is a hacker. No wonder we don't have a digital wallet in the United States today that is analogous to our physical wallet. And that, #1, our physical wallet, who owns it? We control it. We put all of our credentials in one place. We can use it everywhere. But in our digital wallet, whether it's a Web1 digital wallet like a PayPal, where it's my card on file in there, and they own that data, or whether it's a Web2 wallet like Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and Google Pay, that database is owned by them. And so I'm certainly not going to put all of my sensitive information into somebody else's database that they control with one key. That would be, that would be trusting a lot. So we're using the latest blockchain era cryptography which is BIP32, to give everybody a self-derived lock and key, and also a secret recovery phrase using BIP39. This is the Bitcoin protocol that are now been vetted by the community. And then we basically give people control of their own data and then facilitate it by letting them download an application so that they can put anything that they want, whether it's their payment cards, their bank accounts, their ID, their membership, their passport, their passwords, their crypto keys, NFTs. We don't care what you put. It's your private crypto vault that you own. And then let you use it just about everywhere, right? And then we say, okay, what can we do to let you use that data at the point of sale? So we acquired a company called SimplyTap that started around the same time as LoopPay, and friends that basically invented host card emulation, and that patent actually became granted in 2019, 2020. We acquired a company in 2018, and now it's, the patent has been granted in 5 different countries. It's got 3 more pending. And it means that if you want to tap and pay using a token that you fetch from the cloud, which we know that that's the world, the world is going that way. And even some of the biggest players that you know of is licensing that technology from us in order to do tap and pay. And we're certainly going to do tap and pay utilizing tokenization from the cloud and through our application. So this is what makes us really interesting and unique as a super app and a super wallet, is that we not only give self-custody, sovereign control to the user, we also give them the ability to utilize the existing point of sale to tap and pay and utilize their tokens in a way that doesn't require change in the point of sale. So we further, in exchange with Samsung, not only did we do a deal where they licensed the technology of host card emulation and tap and pay there, we also acquired the license from what we sold them with magnetic secure transmission, so that we can create a super card, a little device, an accessory that allows consumers to have a tokenized connected payment device with one-time use card numbers that you can hand to a waiter, you can hand to a bartender, you can hand to your kids to go buy, ice cream or a hot dog at a game, right? So you can now have I'm not going to hand my phone over to a waiter that still has their old micros terminals in the back and old NCR terminals out there, right? So they're not coming to the table with us. So what are we going to hand them? Are we going to hand them our normal plastic cards and risk that it's going to get skimmed? And so modern day solutions for modern day problems. And we see that our digital wallet should be private, safe, easy, and convenient for consumers. And then help them empower their wallet to be able to add additional data like their credit score, their driving score, and let them volunteer those sensitive information so that they can monetize it themselves and get lower cost insurance, lower cost finance, right? And let them be empowered as individuals. But at the same time, we didn't stop there, Mike. We further went
Can I pause you there for a second to make sure I have everything? Yeah. So, and then you can continue on. But OV Loop today is obviously you've had with Roam Data, BEA Systems, EntitleNet, Samsung, like it's been up. You've had a track record of payments. OV Loop is an app that is not white labeled, but that is used for individual consumers that they would download from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. And the way that they would access that wallet is through a cryptographic key, same way as I would access my BitPay wallet or another crypto wallet specifically. And inside of there, I'm picturing something like 1Password or Dashlane, where it's not just, Apple Wallet where I store credit cards. You can put many different file formats. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yep.
Okay. And where is it now in terms of how many, how much money is raised or people using it? Can you give me a sense of the attraction on OVLoop?
So OVLoop's raised about $50 million so far. And I've been the majority funder of that capital into the company. And we've been putting multiple building blocks and building the foundation, because it's not just the application. It's going to be very hard for us to build a solution like the Web 2 world. The Web 2 world is about all about, hey, let me give you this chat application. Let me give you this functionality or application, and you get it for free. And then let me mine your data and monetize your data. That's the Web 2 world. We can't repeat that. Your data belongs to you in this Web 3 world. So we're not going to have the capacity to go and give away all of this free service and trying to monetize the data that way. So, but we also see Web 3 as a relationship economy, where we need to build tools for businesses and empower brands as well as empower the consumer. So the way that we're empowering the brands is that we have built tools, digital engagement tools, for them to be able to have one-tap checkout, one-tap support, one-tap rewards across all of their channels, where today they're having a hard time creating a direct-to-consumer relationship and retaining their customers. They're spending wobs of money trying to drive traffic back to their website or back to their call centers in order to convert a sale or an invoice. And unfortunately, with all the friction and all of the, all of the ways of different channels, different ways of transacting, I'm still, 15 clicks away, even if I wanted to buy. If I have any questions, I got to go self-navigate to find my own answers, or call customer service and wait on phone call to get that answer. And none of those solutions are very good for me, because my conversion rate and abandonment rate is really high. And my conversion rate ends up being, 0.35% of all the money that I'm driving just to the traffic, right? So I'm losing people. But there's no way around it. So what do? As a business, we spend even more money, have even, on Google, Facebook, and all these other places, just to have even lower conversion rate, while the attention span of the customers are getting worse and worse. How many emails do you get a day that you have to go swipe? And So this constant attention economy is hurting the merchants and hurting the relationship. So we decided that we wanted to create solutions that empower the brands and allow them to have a one-on-one relationship with their customers through these tools, and give them a reward system that can actually drive traffic back and actually build a sense of loyalty. So that tool that we've been building, we're about to release next month, and in conjunction with the OVLoop minimum viable application, minimum viable product, right, MVP, and we're launching it with the New England Free to Access a Sports team. We have another company called Binatone, and Hubble Connected is one of our early e-commerce retailers, and we're going to be signing up a number of other merchants. And the great thing about our platform is that we can bring these tools to the brands that are trying to build these relationships, and they don't need to have millions of users. In fact, they don't even have to have one user that has OVLoop Wallet and OVLoop app yet. Because when they send out their one-tap offers to their customers through email, social, and across these different channels. It's easier for their customers to be able to see the offer. If they have any questions, literally one tap, and be able to contact customer service, get questions addressed, get to payment. And of course, the first time they don't have a wallet, so they'll still enter their information. But the next time, we show them how they can get their personalized, sovereign, self-custody wallet that's not hanging out there. And the next time, it's a biometric away. And they can get rewarded for utilizing that wallet and utilizing that transaction to get cash back for that merchant on a reward system that not only works online, but also works in a physical environment or even within affiliates. So that kind of flexible one-tap rewards, one-tap checkout, one-tap chat for support is what we're bringing to the businesses. That's what OB Loop is all about, is closing the commerce loop for Web 3.0.
And it sounds like there was a lot of work done. 50 million before launching. That's a big, like, what would you call that? Pre-launch investment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Three
that's wild.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, I wouldn't be able to pull this off had I not had some previous successes that built off of where we are and had some capital to be able to take this chance to do something so bold as what
right.
Loop is embarking upon. Right. So, I mean, this is bold and ambitious as as anything to look to be the first or one of the U.S. super apps, because there's no U.S. super apps today.
What's a super app?
So that's a bold vision.
Definition.
What is a super app in my definition?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So my definition of super app is a solution that actually it's a universal wallet application that allows the consumer to be able to store just about any kind of credentials and data that they can control, that works across channels, physical, online, in-app, in-message, across devices, iOS, Android, PCs, and across tender types, whether it's credit cards, debit cards, buy now, pay later, RTP, and eventually the different coins that ultimately make it to from the island to the mainland. And those are the things that we see is what a super app application starts out as, but then expand into being able to offer better cost financing, better cost insurance, better cost transportation for mobility as a service. And when you look at Asia, WeChat, Alipay, Grab, a lot of those companies that have leapfrogged the existing infrastructure have created their multiple super apps that are in those regions, but those are not transportable. It's like the Galapagos Island effect to the U.S., where the U.S. has a very unique infrastructure and a very unique ecosystem, both on the POS side and on the wallet side, which is today very fragmented. And our goal is to be able to defragment that and to not disintermediate the brands and their customers, but really to intermediate and bridge them and help give them the tools to have more frictionless, fraudless transactions and better relationships between them. So that's our goal, and that's super ambitious.
Yeah, it's amazingly so. It's such a unique position to be in. So it sounds like your contracts, your partnerships with these large businesses, these large merchants, like I'm picturing Walmart or large grocery stores or that kind of thing, they are your channel to the consumer. And I would imagine you're sitting there thinking our success depends on the conversion through that B to B to C channel. Right. When they send out 1 million emails, what's that conversion rate going to be to open up a wallet and make that transaction? Yeah,
precisely.
Super interesting.
Their success leads to better long-term value for them and more success for the community and more success for us And ultimately, it's about building community that, provides trusted commerce to their customers. So, for example, we're starting out here in Boston next month and St. Patty's Day with, with the first home game of the New England Free Jacks, which is the professional rugby team here. And we want to help build that community and around the stadium. We want to, build some of the local merchants to be able to have a Starbucks-like one-tap rewards experience to drive traffic and create long-term relationships and loyalty. And to have Free Jacks have a one-tap loyalty solution and have neighboring merchants and create kind of this community loyalty program that that builds trust, reduces friction, and empowers both the brands and the consumer. Why wouldn't we do that? And then expand that to other professional teams, in each of the major cities, and then expand that, of course, on the online and web environment as well. So we think that there's an awesome opportunity to bring this to market, but there's a lot of work ahead of us to get that level of ubiquity and adoption. And this is why we're looking for partners as well, such as merchant acquirers and people that are already working with the merchants. Why not give them the opportunity to earn stickiness, provide more value to their existing merchants, and still keep their merchant account, right? So that's something that we're definitely working towards as well.
I'm feeling the familiarity between what you're doing and a startup I started in 2012 called FlowTab. We built a mobile app where it was an iPad and a phone. The iPad would go behind the bar or restaurant counter, and then the phone is in the hands of the consumer that they downloaded. They can place a drink or a food order. It would show up behind the bar. They would make it and then bring it out to the person at the restaurant or bar. And we were in San Francisco. So our strategy, similar to you, was like, let's go to the local tavern, the cafes, the restaurants, sign them up for free, and then do promotions to get people to come into those establishments. And there's little signs, there's pickup areas. They get a free first drink if they sign up. And so we thought a lot about how do you incentivize people to download an app and place a first order, because once you break that friction the first time, the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 100th time is a lot easier. And
for sure.
A lot of learnings.
Your company sounds, a lot like another portfolio company of mine, a very, very talented entrepreneur named Tim, who's the founder of GoTab, and they're doing awesome right now with having QR codes that you can scan at the table, order right on your phone, and have payment done right on your phone, and have the drinks and the food delivered to you. And but anytime you bring something new and innovative, and some of this has already been done in China, right? But when you bring it here and you're actually making it work with the existing point of sale system, that's where the innovation and the hard work starts to pay off. And you're reducing friction, and you're providing value to both the brand and the people and their customers. Right? So that's what is exciting about this next phase that we're in for commerce.
Dude, you got a lot on your plate, and you've done a lot. I admire your progress and wish you wild success in both Indigo and OV Loop. It's impressively difficult businesses to be running simultaneously. So keep chopping wood, man.
Really appreciate.
And you are fairly active on Twitter. You have your own site, Will Graylin, I think it is. Is that right? WillGraylin.com. Anything else you want to throw out there? I know you're hiring for Indigo. Any other places, people, books you wanted to throw out that were particularly inspiring or useful for other people?
I'm continuing to be inspired by people that are out there doing what they're doing and sharing what they're sharing. And in this day and age, what's great about podcasts like yourself and other mediums is that I'm constantly learning from others and being inspired by those who are out there on the front line or in the ring, right? And so I just encourage anybody who wants to reach out to me. Feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. And we definitely have opportunities at both Indigo Technologies as well as OV Loop. And looking forward to the journey ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be difficult, and I'm sure it has been difficult, but I just I hope you find the success you're looking for, especially with Indigo. It just seems like, God, what an exciting time to be working on an EV company. So if I can help in any way, let me know, and keep crushing it, man.
Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate it.
All right.